and welcome. I'm Millicent Walker. Tonight, Federal High Court in Abuja nullifies the suspension of Senator representing Delta Central, Senator Omo-Agege, by the upper legislative chamber. National Judicial Commission recommends sack of Adamawa State High Court Judge Justice Omo-Agege over alleged gross misconduct to probe corruption allegations against 25 other judges. Former Edo State Governor Adams Oshiomhole joins the race for the chairmanship of the All Progressives Congress. A dam on a commercial flower farm burst, killing over 40 persons in Kenya's Rift Valley.
On Business News tonight, World Bank pledges better cooperation with the federal government for improved socio-economic development in the country.
On sports news, semi-finalists emerged in the Lagos State preliminaries of the Channels International Kids Cup.
And from Abuja, Federal High Court, federal government seals $20 million deal with the U.S. government for the control of HIV/AIDS in Nigeria.
We begin tonight with the overturning of the suspension of the lawmaker representing Delta Central, Senator Omo-Agege, for 90 legislative days by the Senate. In his ruling, Justice Nnamdi Dingba of the Federal High Court stated that the Senate is only empowered to suspend an erring member for 14 days and 1 legislative day. Justice Dingba therefore ordered the immediate reinstatement of Senator Omo-Agege, as well as the payment of his salaries and other entitlements. Senator Omo-Agege was on April 12, 2018, suspended during plenary over the remarks he made at a press conference that the amendment of the 2010 Electoral Act by the Senate, seeking to change the sequence of elections, was targeted at President Muhammadu Buhari.
It is a moment of celebration for supporters of Senator Omo-Agege as a federal high court in Abuja overturns his suspension by the Senate. On the 13th of April 2018, the Senate suspended Senator Omo-Agege for 90 legislative days over his comment that the amendment of the Electoral Act 2010, seeking the reordering of the general elections, was targeted at President Muhammadu Buhari. Delivering judgment on the fundamental rights suit filed by Omo-Agege on the 26th of March 2018 against the Senate and the AGF over his suspension, Justice Nnamdi Dingba faults the action of the Senate on the ground that the principle of natural justice was breached by the Senate's Ethics and Privileges Committee for allowing Senator Dino Melaye, who was a complainant of the committee, to participate in the committee's sitting that recommended the suspension. He added that even if the Senate had rightly suspended Senator Omo-Agege, the suspension could not be for more than 14 days, as prescribed in the Senate rules. Justice Dingba also added that, quote, the Senate's decision to punish Omo-Agege for filing a suit against the Senate while his fundamental rights suit was pending constituted an affront on the judiciary, end of quote. The judge therefore nullified Senator Omo-Agege's suspension with immediate effect and ordered that the senator be paid all his allowances and salaries for the period he was illegally suspended. Counsel for the Senate was not available for comment. However, the lawyer representing Senator Omo-Agege applauds the judgment of the court.
Now, the judgment has taught everybody their responsibilities. They cannot exceed their duties. They cannot discipline a legislator for more than 14 days. And they must follow due process. That is what the judgment is all about.
The Solicitor General of the Federation, who represented the Attorney General of the Federation, agrees with the judgment.
I think essentially the judgment is a plus to the rule of law, to the adherence to the judicial precedents, and essentially the limitations and the citizens' rights is what we can find out, because I think essentially it is a victory to the supremacy of law.
The judgment of the court may have returned Senator Omo-Agege, who represents Delta Central, to the Senate, but this may not necessarily be the end of the matter, as the Senate has a right of appeal.
In the meantime, the Senate has said it will appeal the ruling of Justice Dingba of the Federal High Court delivered today in the case involving Senator Omo-Agege, the Senate, and 2 others. In a statement on its Facebook page, the Senate explains that it promptly filed a notice of appeal and a motion for stay of execution of the same judgment. By this move, the Senate wants Senator Omo-Agege stopped from resuming his legislative functions in the chamber. And in nullifying the suspension of Senator Omo-Agege by the Senate, the court has described the action as unconstitutional and overreaching. In this next report, our correspondent Linda Akigbe traces the background of the issues leading to the lawmaker's suspension on the 12th of April 2018.
Senator Omo-Agege's rifts with the Senate began after he opposed the amendment of the 2010 Electoral Act, which set the sequence for general elections.
You don't make a law targeted to one person. The perception out there is that this Section 25 was included to target Mr. President.
The Senate thereafter suspended the senator over remarks he made at a news conference, insinuating that the ongoing amendment of the 2010 Electoral Act is targeted at President Muhammadu Buhari.
If we will agree in the recommendation, we will say recommendation 1 is that the senator involved, Senator Omo-Agege, should withdraw the case. The support group should be disbanded. Number 3 is out of that compassion, we change the recommendation, amend the recommendation of the committee to 90 days.
Surprisingly, some days after his suspension, Senator Omo-Agege walked into the Senate chamber, followed closely behind by some men who snatched the mace of the Senate. The Senate accused Senator Omo-Agege of plotting the theft of the maize, describing the action as an act of treason. But he immediately denied the allegation, explaining that he only went to the Senate chamber to resume work as a senator. With Thursday's judgment by the Federal High Court, it appears that Senator Omo-Agege can resume legislative duties. Senator Omo-Agege is the second lawmaker in the 8th Senate to be suspended after facing the Ethics Committee. The Senate had suspended Senator Ali Ndume in March 2017 for 6 months after he called for investigation of allegations of importing a bulletproof Range Rover with fake documents involving the Senate President, Bukola Saraki, and that of perjury involving Senator Dino Melaye. But a Federal High Court in November 2017 subsequently nullified the suspension of Senator Ali Ndume, describing it as illegal. Linda Akigbe, Channels Television News.
And for some perspectives on this matter, I'm now being joined live from our Abuja studios by a former federal lawmaker and legal practitioner, Dr. West Idahosa. Welcome to the news at 10.
Thank you very much.
Going straight to the heart of the matter, what do you make of the ruling today by the Federal High Court in Abuja on the case between the Senate and Senator Omo-Agege?
Well, I don't think it is unusual. I think it's been the trend of judicial decisions in that regard. And I think the problem is not whether the Senate can suspend one of its own. The problem is whether the Senate complied with its rules in issuing out such suspension orders. So the authority from the courts seem to confirm exactly the Justice Dingba ruling of today. So it was not a big surprise at all.
Dr. Idahosa, the judge ruled that the Senate is only empowered to suspend an erring member for 14 days and 1 legislative day. But in the case of Senator Omo-Agege, it was 181 days and later 91 days. Were lawmakers not aware of that part of the law, or did they ignore it?
Well, I think it depends on the interpretation of the rules. But if I recall what the Senate rules say, it does appear that when a senator is named on the floor, he will, of course, get a suspension for 14 days. And if after that pronouncement is made on him, he refuses, and the Senate president then informs the Senate that that order had been named on him and such senator has refused, he can then get a suspension for the rest of the session. Now, the point is, most of the suspension orders that the Senate has passed didn't follow the naming of the member on the floor. They followed committee reports, and they appear to have been arbitrary. So I think that's where the quarrel is. There is a special methodology for suspending a member for more than 14 days. I'm not too sure Dimba got that right. I'm definitely certain that the Senate can do more than 14 days, but follow specifically the rules set out in the Senate procedure for suspension, which is very technical. And there is also a clause of the Senate rules which talks about the fact that irrespective of what is in the rules of the Senate can, by a resolution, deal with disciplinary matters of a senator. And I think that when you put this side by side with Section 60 or thereabout of the Constitution, which entitles the Senate to make its own rules, then of course, I think there will be enough room for appeal on this matter. Let's hear what the appellate court will say, given the slant that I have made of this matter.
What are your thoughts with regards to the body language of lawmakers, legislators, especially when there is a dissenting voice on an issue on the floor of the House?
Well, I'm totally opposed to that. I think it's only fair that you hear the other side all the time. Do not forget that I had also been suspended myself for airing my views. That's completely against the dictates of the Constitution of Nigeria, and it should not happen in the lawmaking body. But if you do think that a senator has contravened the rules of the House, then of course you subject the senator in accordance with your rules to disciplinary measures. There will be certainly no problem with that. But to punish a senator for airing his views on a matter of national importance is certainly an affront to democratic norms.
Finally, Dr. Idahosa, the Senate is appealing this case. On what grounds, then, do you think the Senate stands for the appeal?
Well, I think, of course, there will always be a number of grounds. The first ground will probably be that the ruling was against the weight of affidavit evidence before the court. Again, the Senate may also be talking about that section I told you about his rules, which talks about his capacity to punish a senator in accordance with the resolution of the Senate. One had been made, and it is different. It's a debatable matter whether the Senate can be stopped from implementing a disciplinary order against one of its own. I think these are definitely debatable matters, and they are appealable issues.
Federal lawmaker and legal practitioner Dr. Idahosa, many thanks for joining us on the News at 10. And it's different strokes for another senator as a high court sitting in Lokoja, the Kogi state capital, adjourned to May the 16th for ruling on the bail application for the lawmaker representing Kogi West, Dino Melaye. The trial judge, Justice Nasir Rajana, fixed the date after listening to arguments from Melaye's counsel, Chief Mike Ezekome, and the prosecution led by Alex Zion. Senator Melaye, who is receiving treatment at the National Hospital Abuja, is facing trial for alleged gun running, criminal conspiracy and kidnapping. Both counsel filed affidavits and counter-affidavit to argue on the two consolidated applications for bail and whether or not to remand Senator Melaye in prison custody. And besides the lawmakers, a justice is at the receiving end of the recommendation by National Judicial Commission for the compulsory retirement of a High Court judge in Adamawa State, Michael Goji. Justice Goji is accused of refusing to proceed on transfer to the Mubi Judicial Division of the State High Court since July 2017, an action which the NJC says amounts to gross misconduct. A statement from the NJC Director of Information, Sojioye, says the counsel has also directed the judge to immediately vacate his office and also refund salaries he has received in the last 10 months. The statement adds that aside from the suspension of Justice Goji, the National Judicial Council has also set up committees to look into allegations leveled against 25 other judges by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission. The EFCC had reportedly sent petitions against some judges it was already prosecuting to the NJC last year. And this followed a Court of Appeal judgment that serving judges could not be investigated or prosecuted by law enforcement agencies until they are disciplined by the council. In part two, after the break, presidential aide on political matters, Senator Babafemi Ojudu, pulls out of the APC governorship primary as party reschedules poll to Saturday. Please stay with us.